Are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle leveraging the American media to try to force Charles to give their kids the titles of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we're going over kind of the controversy surrounding and basically just the lack of information about whether or not Archie and Lily are going to get royal titles. This is actually a very, very critical question because as Charles is kind of setting up his reign and really becoming king and kind of setting a foundation that can perpetuate himself and William and George into the future, he has to consider what to do about his son, Harry, and his children. Does he make them royals, even though he hasn't spent any time with them really? Or does he not? This is a very critical question. And what we've seen from the last couple of days in the American media is them pushing this narrative that yes, Archie and Lily automatically are titled Prince and Princess. While that might technically be the case, the palace does have the final say. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we talk about everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We will do it all right here. So if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And obviously the next week and a half will be all basically entirely dedicated to Queen Elizabeth II, her passing, and everything going on in between that. And so just to update you guys on the current situation is that today the Queen's coffin was moved from Balmoral 6 hours away to Edinburgh. And accompanying her was Princess Anne, who seemed very, very emotional. I can't imagine what it would be like to drive for 6 hours behind your mother's coffin. Although I'm sure seeing all the people come out to support the family, show their love for the Queen, respect for the Queen, I'm sure was deeply impactful. But I can't imagine, kind of the solemnness of that drive. And I think they went, rather slow. So it was about a 6 hour drive. The coffin has arrived in Edinburgh at St. Giles Cathedral. And while there, it will lie in state, and the crown of Scotland will be placed upon her coffin. And Princess Anne, as her mother was kind of being taken into the cathedral, she gave her mother this beautiful and I think very, very respectful curtsy. So go ahead and take a watch here. All right, guys, I love that so much. I love the, tradition of curtsying and everything. And I love just the respect and reverence that Anne is showing to her mother there. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful moment. And we've seen a lot of beautiful moments from the Windsors of them mourning together. I'm specifically thinking of those in Balmoral. So this was Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, children, their spouses. And so all of them together had this very, very emotional walkabout in Balmoral, seeing the flowers and the pictures. So go ahead and take a watch here in this video as well. And just to kind of finish off with, just watching a family, grieve the loss of their grandmother, great-grandmother, mother. Again, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And one of my favorite pictures there's this one from behind, and it's just like 5 of them with their arms around each other. So it's Princess Eugenie, Beatrice, Lady Louise, Prince Andrew, and Sophie, the Countess of Wessex. Regardless of the fact that they are a royal, they are a family too. And you really have felt that the last couple of days. Of course, looking at all this, Charles is obviously taking some high-ranking meetings, really setting up his government. But the big question that remains, and kind of the confusion that's going on right now, is whether or not his younger son, Prince Harry, his children, so this is Archie and Lily, will have royal titles. And this is kind of just a complex situation because Charles has to kind of balance The reaction if he does give them the titles, some of the outrage, and if he doesn't give them the titles, some of that outrage. Because honestly, either way he makes this decision, it's going to come back to bite him, I think, in one way or the other. So I don't envy him in this way at all. But just to backtrack a bit, because I think it's important to kind of start at the beginning. When Archie was first born, Harry and Meghan actually made the decision to not title him. And Tom Bower, I think, was one of the first to reveal that part of the reason they didn't want him to give the title is because his title would be like Earl of Dumbarton. And they did not like that because it had dumb in it, and they were worried he would be teased. I actually kind of get that, especially if they were already thinking they were going to live in the United States. And honestly, the United States just doesn't totally understand, some of these royalties and royal signs and stuff. So I could kind of get that. But they decided to not title him. And through Omid Scobie, who has basically become kind of a laughingstock among royal journalists, he still kind of gives commentary for Good Morning America and I think a couple other outlets. But any royal reporters in the UK kind of treat him as a joke. He's basically just called Meghan's friend and all the time, and they, make little swipes at him. And so, but he's, managed to set up a pretty good career for himself, being basically Meghan's unofficial spokesperson. That's what a lot of the outlets refer to him as. He was one of the first to say on Twitter after Archie was born that, Harry and Meghan decided they didn't want the title. So here's what he said on Twitter. As expected, Harry and Meghan foregone a courtesy title for their child, all part of giving him as normal life as possible. Love that Doria was there when the Queen met Archie for the first time at Windsor Castle today. When this first came out about Harry and Meghan that they had declined the title, I actually applauded them. I was like, bravo. Because although from the jump I was very, very not on the Meghan Markle train, after the disastrous kind of wedding outcome, definitely still was not on the Meghan Markle train at all. I actually respected them for not giving their children titles because I was like, oh, you get it. You're just unfortunately not that important anymore. And your children don't really need titles. They're just going to be normal everyday citizens. I was like, bravo, thumbs up, totally understand that. Totally respect that, because I felt like they understood how the rest of Europe is going. So when it comes to Sweden, the King of Sweden, he has 3 children: Crown Princess Victoria, Prince Carl Philip, and Princess Madeline. So Crown Princess Victoria's children have his or her Royal Highness Princess Estelle and Prince Oscar. However, when it comes to the King's other grandchildren, so this is the 3 sons that Carl Philip has and the 3 children that Madeline has, although they are all styled Prince and Princesses, they don't actually have an HRH anymore. After they were born, that part of their title was stripped. They still have dukedoms, but they are not his or her Royal Highness. And the way the Swedish royal family kind of explained this is that they're not kind of members of the royal household, meaning they will never be working members of the royal family. Ergo, they just don't need this additional title to their name. It makes sense. All the monarchies are doing this. In Denmark, the Crown Prince Frederik, and his wife, Crown Princess Mary, have 4 children. Only their firstborn son, Prince Christian, who was the direct heir to the throne after his father, will be the only one who's on kind of a state salary and is only one who's going to be a working member of the royal family. The other 3 kids have basically been told, hey, you are on your own. And the same goes double for Crown Prince Frederik's younger brother, Joachim. He also has 4 children who have also been told, hey, you are completely on your own. Actually, it's gotten so interesting in Denmark. They've actually kind of made it so that Joaquin actually now works in France. He has moved out of France. He's no longer basically a regular working member of the royal family. Denmark is obviously a small country, so you don't need a ton anyways. But it is interesting that all these monarchies are slimming down. They're going with the direct line of succession. Now, if Charles had become king while William did not have children and Harry did not have children, they would have both been in the direct line. However, William now has 3 children. George is 9, he's going on 10. The Cambridge kids, oh gosh, I said the Cambridge. The Wales children will just get older and older and older. And as they get older, Harry will go further down the line of succession along with his children. So in many ways, it just it's not even feasible for them to be working members. And I thought with Harry and Meghan's statement, through Omid Scobie basically after their child was born, I was like, oh, you guys get it. You guys get what everybody else in Europe is doing. Everybody's going with the direct line, especially once kind of it's been established that, once, like in William's case, he has 3 children, that's the established line, although they're not working members yet. They will be working members of the royal family at some point. Charlotte and Louis's children will not be. And you got to think about this as well. Looking historically, it made sense to have a lot of prince and princesses because, children could die very young. Babies oftentimes, especially from birth till 1 year old, were exceptionally vulnerable to diseases, to death. And even once you're a grown adult, you have smallpox, you have tuberculosis, you have all these sorts of diseases that can kill you in a way that, doesn't happen to us anymore generally. So granted, barring a huge accident, and those do happen. You think of Princess Diana, you think of Prince Friso in the Netherlands. He died tragically in an avalanche, basically, and was on life support for, several months until he finally passed away. Those things can happen, but they are exceptionally rare. So really at this point, there's no reason to have a ton of princes and princesses roaming around. They're just not totally needed anymore. Obviously, if you think of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, they are both, they were born in the late 80s, in 1990, and so they are kind of young women who kind of were growing up when the monarchy still had a lot of its prestige before things kind of fell apart after 1992 up to 1997, and then kind of the monarchy kind of had a re-rise later in the 2000s, kind of when Catherine and William got married. The monarchy just doesn't need as many prince and princesses roaming around anymore. Obviously, everybody can have courtesy titles like, Lord and Lady and those sorts of things. But really these prince and princesses, because once you have a title like that, regardless of what you think, you are a prince or princess of the United Kingdom. You represent the UK. Meghan doesn't think she does, but in reality, every time she uses her title, she's representing Sussex, she's representing the Queen, now the King, she's representing, the rest of the royal family, William, Catherine. Every time she uses that title, she really does actually represent the monarchy, especially because she tries to use the title to get ahead. Now, let's move to the next time Meghan mentioned the titles, or Harry mentioned the titles, and it was in the Oprah Winfrey interview, where Meghan made the very salacious allegation that the reason her son would not get security is because he didn't have a title and nobody wanted to give him one. So basically, listen to this clip here.
In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What?
Okay, guys. So looking at this clip, basically, Meghan Markle later kind of admitted what she said initially was not true. Basically, it was a lie because she said later, oh yeah, letters of patent, I think it's from George V or something, say he's not entitled to a title. It's like, well, that's a huge discrepancy between you stating that he was denied the title because of the color of his skin to changing it to, well, the letters of patent never said he was entitled to one to begin with. Those are two separate things. And in addition, I think it's always good to say, because I think Meghan plays on the fact that Americans don't totally understand how monarchies work. And so she says these things knowing they are incendiary, knowing most people don't know kind of the behind the scenes things that are going on, is that regardless of whether or not you have a prince or princess title, does not mean you automatically get security. That's non-existent. So for example, Princess Anne, who is the daughter of the Queen, did not have 24-hour security. Neither did Prince Edward and his wife Sophie and their children. So this idea that because you are titled, you get 24-hour security was basically just a lie. So looking at this as well, obviously Meghan admitted, hey, the letters of patent say my child doesn't become a prince or princess, which was entirely true. But here's the important thing about the letters of patent is that they are malleable. They are not set in stone. So for example, when Prince William's children were born, technically they could only be styled as the children of a duke rather than the children of the future King of England, which would mean they needed a prince or princess title. They amended the letters of patent to make sure that the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, that his children all get his or her Royal Highness titles, prince or princess. So that was amended to change because it did actually make a lot of sense at the time. Now, when you look at the letters of patent, technically, and this is technically, yes, Archie and Lilibet immediately became prince or princess right after Charles became king, after the Queen died. And that is what it says in the letters of patent, not denying that. What I am saying is that this is not a done deal. This is not something where you could take it to the bank and go, oh yeah, they have titles. Not yet, because the palace hasn't said so. And we get this because in the line of succession on the royal website, Archie and Lily are still just titled Master Archie and Miss Lilibet. And I think there's a very specific reason for that. And I think Harry and Meghan are really deeply, deeply concerned that their children, especially Meghan, that their children will not get these royal titles. And honestly, I just don't think they deserve them at this point because their parents have made it so difficult for Charles and William over the last couple of years. And you got to look at Charles as well. He's trying to establish his reign. There's a lot going on. It's a complicated issue. People loved his mother, but they're not necessarily a huge fan of Charles. So what does he have to do? He has to figure out how to make sure everybody's happy and that nobody is super upset, but he also has to make this decision knowing that nobody is going to be happy on either side. There's going to be people who are angry if he gives the kids titles or if he doesn't give the kids titles. So let's say, for instance, why shouldn't he yet? Why should he still continue to think about this? Because that's what I think he's doing. I think William and Charles both are playing the long game against Harry and Meghan. They want to know what's in the memoir, what's in the Netflix documentary that they're filming, the reality TV show they're filming. They want to know before they give these kids titles, because what if they give the kids titles and then Harry and Meghan just go and stab them in the back again? That just doesn't make any sense. So kind of just looking at this broadly, Harry and Meghan are no longer working members of the royal family. And as Charles very clearly said in his first address to the nation, they are off doing their thing overseas. And he basically said, good luck with that. Enjoy it. That is what he said. So take a listen here.
I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives overseas.
You can see here, it's a very brief mention. And this was the instance too, I think, where if the situation was different, he would have said, and their children are Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. But he didn't say that because they know Harry and Meghan have very clearly told the whole world they're doing their own thing. And I think the monarchy's like, well, okay, just do your own thing. That's totally fine. They don't need the titles anymore. Harry and Meghan have made it very clear that they want to do their own thing. They want to make their own money. It's like, well, that's fine. But if your kids have titles, they still represent me, no matter what you think. So why would I give them that title? I'm just, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. Do you really need a Prince Archie running around Montecito just going, I'm Prince Archie of the United Kingdom? Even though this is the other point, Archie and Lily have hardly spent any time in the UK and they've hardly spent any time with their family. So Lily has spent a grand total of about 3 days in the United Kingdom. And because they came over the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and Harry and Meghan stayed for such a short period of time, Lily and Archie probably didn't get to see their grandfather at all. And that was perhaps by design because they, had this birthday party knowing that Charles and William and everybody else pretty much had a ton to do. And they couldn't necessarily take all this time to rush out to Windsor when they had, all these engagements that the Queen, for her own Platinum Jubilee, could not do. They were taking the place of Her Majesty, who was just not able physically to do all the things that she wanted to do. So the family was doing their obligation as royals, as working members of the royal family. They don't have time to indulge Harry and Meghan in their every whim. And we've also been reported that Charles, in addition to Catherine and William, only saw Archie a handful of times before they left when he was about, 6 months old or so. They hardly ever saw him. Harry and Meghan just did not spend the time to bring their children around Charles. And yes, Charles is exceptionally busy. I bet you almost have to schedule time with him. Especially, this is going to be even more critical now that he's king. But you know what? Catherine and William have been able to do it. Louis just loved seeing his grandfather. He was very close. I think he's very, very close to his grandfather. He had a blast with his grandfather during the Jubilee pageant. He clearly spends a lot of time around his grandparents. And so that's a wonderful, loving thing that you have this family environment. Well, Harry and Meghan have not made any effort to connect with Charles or William. So why would they expect them now to just go, oh yeah, you kids can have your titles, knowing again that whatever Archie and Lily do now or in the future reflects back on them. Regardless of what they think, it does reflect on them. And then you also had the huge problem of they have no clue what Harry and Meghan are going to do next. They are loose cannons. Meghan's interview with The Cut was kind of off the rails, just weird, because she said some things were just utterly bizarre in that interview. I mean, she had this whole instance talking about this bouncy house and a 1-year-old, and she was trying to get in the bouncy house with the 1-year-old, wondering why the 1-year-old was by herself, and there was this woman outside who was the mom, and it's like, well, why would you put a 1-year-old in a bouncy house by his or herself? That just doesn't even make any sense. So you have all this, and she kind of sounded, honestly, at times you could tell her ego's kind of out of control, because she basically compared herself to Nelson Mandela in a story that nobody can corroborate was told to her. So it clearly seems made up, to be quite honest. And again, there was just a lot of weird interactions that were mentioned and enhanced, and you just wonder, okay, what is really going on here? And you have her interview with Mindy Kaling where she says, well, Harry should be thrilled that I picked him. And it's like, well, honey, he gave you everything. Like, don't lie. Like, you are a no-name actress. Mindy Kaling would not give you the time of day if it wasn't for Harry. So don't say that he's just lucky that I got with him. That's just kind of crazy when you think about it. So we have this loose cannon aspect of Harry and Meghan where they just can't stop talking about the monarchy, and all they do is trash it. They trash Charles, they trash William, they trash Kate. They said Kate made Meghan cry, even though every news outlet reported the opposite way. The only one with Meghan's story is Meghan. Basically, everybody else said it was the opposite, and that she was frustrated by something about Charlotte. And so she kind of took it out on Kate and her staff, and even perhaps Charlotte. So Catherine and William are very much, I mean, you could tell even in this walkabout they did, Catherine kept her distance from Harry and Meghan. She was not interested really in chatting with them at all. They played nice publicly, but they have definitely not mended the scenes. I mean, Meghan said on international television that Kate made her cry. That's just, and apparently was very, very rude to Princess Charlotte, put her down. Like, there's some crazy stories about whatever happened with the bridesmaids thing. So again, it's like, why would you give titles to these people who still have the memoir coming out where Harry may trash Charles and Camilla and William and Catherine again? You have the Netflix reality TV show. Why would you give titles to people who immediately will almost stab you in the back? Even if you were nice to them and give them these titles, they will immediately stab you in the back. That's just something Charles and William really have to deeply consider before they do. And I think Harry and Meghan as well, especially Meghan, has really, really misjudged what she's done, because she didn't understand, I think, at some point. It was like, well, you can praise the Queen all day. That's fine. But what do you do when she dies? And Charles, the guy you've been bashing, and William, the guy you've been bashing, become King and the Prince of Wales. Now, they have all the power. The Queen was kind of, I think, removed somewhat from the situation because she just wanted peace. Charles wants to rule. So he needs to keep Harry and Meghan in line the best he can, because if they're going to be loose cannons, they are a threat to his reign. And so the power dynamic has definitely shifted, and Meghan and Harry no longer have the leverage that they do. And so even if they tried, let's say, to kind of convince Charles, oh, no, we won't do anything. I mean, he still has a lot of power. Like I said, the letters of patent are not set in stone, and we don't have any clarification on this issue yet. In fact, here's a couple of statements we have on it. Someone from Elle was reporting, At the moment, we're focused on the next 10 days, and as and when we get information, we will update the website. So again, this is the royal website, which still says Master Archie and Miss Lilibet. We also have this report from the Times of London, which states, palace officials also refused to say whether Harry and Meghan's children, Archie and Lilibet, would be styled as Prince and Princess with HRH titles, as protocol would usually allow for the grandchildren of the sovereign. So I think Harry and Meghan, again, vastly underestimated their own appeal and vastly underestimated the power that Charles and William would have when they became king and the Prince of Wales, and did not quite understand. They burned bridges so much. Can they even come back from this? And so I think what we have instead is the American media all of a sudden pushing, yes, technically, yes, they are His Royal Highness Prince Archie and Her Royal Highness Princess Lilibet. We have this on CNN. Following the death of the Queen, Harry and Meghan's children have become His Royal Highness Prince Archie of Sussex and Her Royal Highness Princess Lilibet of Sussex. The change is a result of the conventions created over a century ago. Under the rules set out by George V in 1917, the grandchildren of the monarch automatically receive royal titles. Harper's Bazaar title is Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan's children can now inherit new royal titles. The New York Times, Meghan and Harry's children could now inherit royal titles. And I think that's critical. They could get royal titles. Because I think at the end of the day, Charles can still amend the letters of patent. And whereas Harry and Meghan are suddenly pushing this narrative that yes, they really do want their children to be Prince and Princess, however, all they've done is damage their relationship with the monarchy. That's all they've done. So Charles has this big question on his hands, because not only has Harry and Meghan offended him and William, they've basically offended a lot of the UK as well. They are not popular figures. So again, why would they give them Prince and Princess titles? So my suggestion has always been amend the letters of patent to state, as long as the children live in the UK and go to UK schools, they can have those royal titles if they wish, because it makes sense, because they are in the UK, they're growing up in the UK, they're growing up with UK traditions. Children who have no connection to the UK, they don't need to be His or Her Royal Highness Prince or Princess. They have no connection to the monarchy. Harry and Meghan have made it very clear they don't want to spend time with anybody in the monarchy. Even when they had the chance to visit the Queen the last time they were in for the Platinum Jubilee, they really wanted their own photographer there. So it seemed like they spent a very short amount of time with the Queen at Windsor, in part because they couldn't bring their own photographer there to capture the moment. And how sad is that? That in order to visit the Queen, they really wanted to make sure a photographer that was there, their photographer, to capture every moment so they could probably sell those pictures. The monarchy is not foolish here. They want to wait. They need to take the wait and see approach. And I think that's what Charles and William are doing. They're waiting to see what happens with Harry and Meghan. They're waiting to see when the next shoe will drop and trying to figure out, perhaps even they'll leverage, well, if you don't release the memoir, we'll give your kids the titles. They could do that leverage. They could use a lot of leverage against Harry and Meghan now, because again, the letters of patent can be changed. And Charles could also say, well, you know, they don't get to use the titles now, but they can choose to use the titles once they become 18, and perhaps even Charles might pass away before that happens, and all of a sudden that possibility disappears altogether. That could be the case entirely. Regardless, I think at this point to say automatically, I mean technically, yes, they are His or Her Royal Highness Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. But that the palace has not said, I think, is key here. They have the final word. They have the final say. And Charles is waiting to see, balancing it. Will there be more outrage if we give them the titles or if we don't give them the titles? And what do I want to deal with more? Because at this point, again, the letters of patent can be changed and they can be amended. And perhaps, again, I've mentioned changing it to growing up and actually going to school in the UK, in part because it protects Charlotte and Louis's children if they need to have titles for whatever reason. If they, for some reason, become working members of the royal family, all of a sudden, they do now have those titles if they need them. Perhaps they don't. Perhaps they'll voluntarily not give it. But Harry and Meghan, again, have made the crucial error of thinking their actions have no consequences. That just trashing Charles, William, Catherine, Camilla, that nobody will say anything. That they'll just roll over. That may have been the case to a certain extent when the Queen was in power, because they wanted to appease her and they didn't want to give her any more heartache in her final years. But the Queen is dead, And as they say, long live the king. And the king here, the king, if he was going to give them those titles, he would have given them in his speech, I think. And this wait and see approach is trying to figure out, how do they best manage Harry and Meghan? We got this report when it comes to their walkabout yesterday that when William asked them to come with him at the 11th hour, allegedly this was spurned because they had been told Harry and Meghan were arranging their own walkabout, which was not authorized. They wanted to do their own. They had told American outlets and somebody tattled on them. So Catherine and William said, okay, yeah, here, you can go with us. You can't do this alone. No. But you can do this with us. And that led to a 45-minute negotiation period. 45 minutes, apparently. This is also from the Times of London. Again, a very reputable source. 45 minutes to do a 40-minute walking bout. They spent more time discussing how this would go about than actually doing it. And I don't think that's Catherine and William's wish. But everything with Harry and Meghan has strings attached, and they have to be very, very careful to know that there will be no Netflix cameras there, there'll be no recording equipment there, and that this will be done in light and respect of the monarchy and not to pad Harry and Meghan's own pockets. And again, Harry and Meghan's actions this week could prove critical for their children's future. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of my suppositions. Again, a lot of this is just my thoughts and coming together, although I will say that I did a video before the Queen's Platinum Jubilee explaining how I thought the monarchy would kind of, to a certain extent, embarrass Harry and Meghan by really shuffling them off to the side. And you know what? They did exactly that. So oftentimes my instincts are pretty good. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Obviously, more coverage of the Queen's funeral and the preparations for it. There'll be a lot to discuss in this coming week. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.